Welcome to Houseplant History.
And now it was Frosted's good fortune that right at the bottom of the hill was a tiny greenhouse used to grow precious tropical poinsettias for Christmas.
Of all the plants we associate with the Christmas holidays, the poinsettia is one of the most beloved in the United States. A staple of Christmas decorations across the country, every year they become ubiquitous in window displays, doctors' offices, and in homes. The poinsettia industry is a booming one, with 70 million of these plants being sold within those 6 weeks. The industry is worth $250 million.
Has anyone told you what we grow here?
I heard it was the ultimate cash crop.
That it is. Impressive, isn't it?
Aren't these poinsettias?
And then, just as quickly as it started, the holiday season ends, that money stops coming in, and the poinsettia nurseries begin planning for next year's holiday boom. In the weeks following, most of the poinsettias and window displays quickly wither away and die from winter lack of sun in our northern hemisphere, or even end up tossed in the trash. Their red-green color fades with our holiday spirit, and we forget about them. In the US, poinsettias are the plant version of that new iPhone update, botanical planned obsolescence. And just like that, poinsettias are banished to the island of misfit toys. This isn't the case, however, in their natural habitat. In the mid-elevation tropical dry forests of Mexico and Guatemala, poinsettias, or Euphorbia pulcherrima, grow up to 15 feet tall. The red leaves are actually bracts, specialized leaves for reproduction, and if you break a stem, it oozes a milky sap, like other members of the Euphorbia genus. In the pre-colonial Aztec Empire, poinsettias were called Quetzalcoatl, or mortal flower that perishes and withers like all that is pure, in the Aztec language of Nahuatl. The Aztecs, who referred to themselves as Culha Mexica, used the bract sap for medicines and to make red dye. Since the plant's flowering coincided with the winter solstice and the birth of Aztec god Huitzilopochtli, poinsettias were used as adornments in temples. It's also featured heavily in Aztec oral tradition. In one story, the bracts of the plant were said to be originally white, but turned red after the Taxco people were killed by the Mexica. When the Spanish overtook Tenochtitlan in the 16th century, they built Mexico City on top of the old city, within the Viceroyalty of New Spain. During this time, they destroyed indigenous religious symbols and converted the population to Catholicism, by force, and often deadly. Still, the religious association of the poinsettia lived on. Instead of being associated with an Aztec god, it was now a symbol of a Christmas miracle, associated with a Christmas folktale. Quetzalcoatl became known as Flores de Nochebuena, or Flowers of the Holy Night in Spanish, and were used as Christmas decorations. This was the poinsettia status in 1822 when President Monroe sent a recently elected congressman from South Carolina to Mexico for 6 months as a special envoy. The man's name was Joel Roberts Poinsett. Poinsett was a politician and amateur botanist with a knack for learning languages. But it was likely his time as a special agent in Chile and Argentina that got him the job. You see, just 1 year earlier, Mexico won its independence from Spain after 13 years fighting the Mexican War of Independence. While Mexico and Spain were embroiled in war, the Louisiana Purchase by U.S. President Thomas Jefferson in 1803 and later transcontinental treaty with Spain in 1819 marked the beginning of the U.S. imperialist philosophy of territorial expansion, later coined Manifest Destiny, or the idea that the United States is destined by God, its advocates believed, to expand its dominion and spread democracy and capitalism across the entire North American continent. At the time he was sending Poinsett as envoy, Monroe recognized that post-colonial Mexico would be fraught with political division and unrest, and in 1823 he invoked the Monroe Doctrine. According to the Monroe Doctrine, the Old World and the New World were to remain distinct spheres of influence, barring any further European colonization in the Americas. It essentially gave the United States free rein for imperialist expansion. So when President Monroe sent Poinsett to Mexico to quote-unquote document the state of the newly liberated country, it's safe to say that wasn't the only purpose for the trip. Fortunately for us, Poinsett documented his trip extensively and published the whiniest travel diary I have ever read in 1825 titled Notes Made from Mexico. Apart from some nice descriptions of the native plants, the book makes Poinsett sound like the most annoying travel partner in the history of travel partners. He especially likes to point out things he doesn't like about the people and culture, and he compares them to the U.S. At one point, Poinsett, who was himself a slave owner, writes about the injustices of Mexico's caste-like social system. We also learn some critical insights about Poinsett, such as how much he hates Spanish cuisine and why he can't stand Catalonian wine. I particularly like this passage where he is so scandalized after encountering some men gambling that he has to put himself to bed, or this hot take he has on women smoking in public. Despite these traumatizing experiences, Poinsett continued his work in Mexico over the next decade, later becoming an important figure in early Mexican-American diplomatic relations, but for all the wrong reasons. This may come as a shock, but he was incredibly disliked in Mexico. He sabotaged the Mexican presidential election, inciting a coup and forcing the elected president to flee the country. It's safe to say that his political career in Mexico was over by 1830. As for non-political ventures, he was still acting as a menace to Mexican society. One of the first things Poinsett did when he got to Mexico was open a mining operation to exploit Mexico's natural resources. One day in 1828, while looking for new locations to exploit in Taxco de Alarcón, just outside of Mexico City, he came across a beautiful plant that caught his eye. He immediately took cuttings, kept some of them, and sent others to friends back home. One of the friends he sent cuttings to was a famous botanist named Robert Buist. Buist named the plant Euphorbia poinsettia and began exporting specimens to Europe. Soon after, the Vatican used poinsettias in their Christmas display, and Catholic churches everywhere followed suit. Poinsett continued his political career in the U.S., and in 1837 he oversaw Andrew Jackson's 1830 Indian Removal Act, later known as the Trail of Tears, where 60,000 members of the Cherokee, Muskogee, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations were forcibly displaced from their ancestral land. At least he helped create the Smithsonian. As for our modern Christmas obsession with poinsettias, we can thank Paul Ecke Sr., a man who called himself Mr. Poinsettia. Ecke was a horticulturist in California who built our Christmas Poinsettia Association from scratch through years of clever marketing. Ecke's father, Albert, was a German immigrant and had been growing poinsettias on their family farm since 1909. He sold them as cut bouquets in roadside stands and at the Los Angeles Flower Market. When his son Paul Ecke Sr. took over the family business, he bred the first poinsettia that was hardy enough to be grown indoors, in a pot. He liked the Christmas association with the plant's red and green palette, and the plant started to drop leaves within a week or two anyway. The family used the fact that they were near Hollywood to send free poinsettias to studios to be featured in movies and on TV, and sent more free plants to magazine shoots and anywhere else they could garner publicity. It worked, and Ecke's business owns over 50% of the world's market share of the poinsettia industry today, although his grandson sold the family business in 2012 for an undisclosed amount. The family bred the plants to last months indoors instead of just days, and their legacy shows every Christmas when poinsettia season begins.
The old manager tried to kill herself by eating a whole pot of poinsettias.